Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good evening,
Hi.
ma'am. Good evening.
Hi, Soumya. Hi. Okay, so we are all here. I think we can start.
I'll just log into my laptop as well, ma'am, so that I can see the audience questions. Yeah, okay. Okay, shall we start, ma'am?
Yeah, I think we can start.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. We have had an amazing year with four immensely successful residency talk sessions, and I'm pretty sure that this fifth session is going to warm your hearts and ignite your minds and propel you into an amazing year ahead. And it is with great honor and privilege that I introduce our convener, Dr. Soumya Sachdeva, ma'am. She is currently an assistant professor in the Saraswati Institute of Medical Sciences, and she is a visiting consultant dermatologist at Max Hospital, Ghaziabad. She has had 35 publications and has innumerable oral publications, oral presentations, and she is a recipient of many scholarships, including the American Academy of Dermatology Strauss and Katz Award and the International Leprosy Congress Scholarship. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vignesh, for such a long introduction. I'm honored. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Residency Talks. Today, we have a very prominent dermatologist with us, Dr. Shymanta Barua, sir. He is head of Department of Dermatology at Assam Medical College and Hospital. He is currently chairperson of Association of Cutaneous Surgeons ACSI Academy of Dermatosurgery. In 2020, he was awarded the Economic Times Inspiring Dermatologist of India. He has also been the recipient of numerous scholarships, awards, and fellowships, and has been invited as a faculty to innumerable zonal, national, and international conferences. He is also a member of Special Advisory Board for National Board of Examinations and a member of Expert Committee of CDSCO, and DGHS under Government of India. Welcome, sir.
To be with all of you.
And today we have, yes, sir. And we have two of our members of NRCC, Dr. Vignesh Narayan, who is North Zone Coordinator for NRCC and is junior resident. He has actually finished his residency and awaiting the results at PGIMR Chandigarh. And Soumya Alice Matthew, who is a member of NRCC and consultant dermatologist at Dermaview Clinic. So let us now begin with today's session. So I think I'll take up the first question, sir. So let's just start with the first thing, like since we are talking of dermatology, what is it that made you take up dermatology as a profession? What is it that sparked your interest in dermatology?
To be very honest, dermatology was not my choice of specialization, at least during my MBBS days. Orthopedics. So I had a soft
Same here, sir.
that probably developed a fair bit of interest in the subject during my internship. And let me tell you, those days we didn't have mandatory internship in dermatology, so it was an optional thing. You have various other options, and probably I think probably took radiology or something. I forgot. So but then again, yes, I laddered up with dermatology, and definitely you tend to develop the interest in the subject as you go along. One of the deciding factors in my probably love for orthopedics was the fact that it was an end specialty, in the sense that graduation you don't need to commit to a super specialization. So in that way, probably dermatology also fits the bill, in the sense that you have a composite specialty where you can take up super specialization and subspecialties, but the interest in how you want to do.
Sir, since you're interested, now you've developed interest in dermatology, have you always been from the beginning interested in procedural dermatology?
When we did the PG training, the scenario was entirely different from what it is today. talking about the turn of the millennium, phase when probably dermatology was evolving from a medical specialty to this, to a specialty where you have avenues for surgical and aesthetic dermatology practice. Definitely, yes. That aspect has, more sort of a holistic sort of upskilling that has happened in our specialty, and of course, at the cusp of that evolution. Now that it is has developed into this sort of multi-sphere specialty, it has, of course, it stands us in good stead.
What was the first procedure that you mastered?
I'm sure the majority of the dermatology departments across the country did not have lasers there, at least not in the government hospitals. So what we had was the, or the, radio frequency equipment, bio machine. I remember when I joined, our department had the hyfricator definitely, but the cryo machine was, lying. It was non-functional sort of that machine and the people are not exactly in your city of where we are doing the post-graduation. Carrying that machine to a conference that way. So, the first procedures, of course, was the hyfricator, and then, of course, was there, we started to do the cryo for all the other lesions, and especially for keloids and all that. That was the age when cryo was,
Sir, you mentioned that the dermatology does not have any super specialization, but in the current world, it's like expanding, and there are a number of subspecializations, if not super specialization. For example, dermatopathology, dermatosurgery, pediatric dermatology. So, if one wanted to subspecialize, how do you identify which area you want to subspecialize in? It's really confusing, actually. So, do you have any tips and suggestions for that?
Your basic training. So, once your third year, you have a fair idea of specific areas of interest, whether that's your forte is clinical dermatology, or you want to dabble in, say, dermatosurgery, or for that matter, say, even aesthetic dermatology. Will not cover a lot of these subspecialties in detail, at least not the procedural stuff in most government hospitals, I'm telling. Need to then identify that core area, and that will come to you, I think, naturally, because sometimes you are in a dilemma whether to do, a dilemma between two areas of maybe where you are equally interested. So then, of course, you will have to look into of the further training that you do to your region. If you are interested in, say, aesthetic dermatology, and then you are going back to an area where, aesthetic dermatology probably needs long sort of investment in sorts of time and infrastructure. Those are the things you will look into. So, what will serve your interest best once you go back to your practice, or even for institution, to determine the specialization that you do. That the world is pretty rosy now and a lot of options. So it is always best to probably do a sort of a training post your residency in one of these areas that you identify.
So, talking about procedural dermatology, what according to you is the best way for the residents, the students to learn a procedure? Any procedure, any dermatosurgery
First, of
procedure?
Course, you have to have a sort of a grounding in the procedure. That, of course, you will need to acquire from your textbooks and from your journals and from the various clinical discussions. And then you need to observe it from a skilled hand. Have a look at the procedure and actually then do a hands-on sort of a, then probably you will be sort of confident enough to do it yourself. This is where the sort of fellowships that we had in the past, or the fellowships, now of course these are observerships. So exposure, definitely. Workshops and the conferences go out in certain areas now. Workshop, every conference has a workshop, several workshops. So it's a dedicated day for the workshops in most of our national conferences, whether it be or whether it be the ACSI or other such organizations. That also helps, definitely. Is that even if you do a couple of workshops, you need to come back and then with someone who is doing it in a routine on a regular basis, so that you develop the skills for that. Require the skills, the hands-on skills for a laser machine, but for the other procedural stuff, whether it is surgical or aesthetic, a learning curve.
Yes, that's right, sir. And since you're such a wonderful teacher and a clinician for that matter, how do you, so our students want to know how to make the best possible use of all the resources that are available for a resident during dermatology? Since you've always been into teaching, and you've been, I'm sure, teaching for so many years to the residents.
What I feel is that you, of course, you dermatology, even if it's not your first choice, as was the case with me, you tend to, you have to develop an interest for that. Develop that interest and the passion. You look out for avenues to maximize your residency. One area that helped me during my residency was anything related to teaching. Clinical classes for your undergraduate students. Discussion with your co-PGs to clarify your own learning, insight into where actually you need to probably. One thing that that all the residents should not shy away from, because sometimes I feel the residents feel that okay, you are being burdened with work. That a burden. If you take up such assignments of the clinical teaching parts for the undergraduate students. You need to maximize whenever you go for conferences. It should not be just a leisure time. It should not be just for sightseeing. Of course, you will do that on the sidelines. But you can actually maximize attending conferences. What we used to do in our residency is sessions between our co-residents. So because nowadays you have 5, 6 parallel halls in our national conferences. It's impossible to actually attend or listen to each of the areas of the talk that you're interested in. So we basically used to divide the sessions and come back and then, have a sort of a joint sort of a discussion on messages that elicit from those talks. So those two areas, and definitely, of course, to be regular in the clinics, and that goes without saying, of course.
That's very wonderfully summarized. I'm sure people who are listening, they'll benefit from it immensely.
Sir, as residents who just complete their post-graduation, they're always in this dilemma. Do they get into working, that is working in a medical college, or working in a private setup, start their own clinic, or do a fellowship? So do you feel that doing a fellowship is necessary in today's world?
Yeah, the first thing is, of course, you have to identify whether you would like to be in the teaching institute, or whether you would like to go into immediately after passing out. But I feel that after passing out, you either stint of senior residency, a clinical apprenticeship with a senior dermat in your town instead. It's the case with a fellowship because some of the procedures may not be done at your institute on a regular basis. You get exposed to a lot of things, in a fellowship and observership. Suppose you opt for a fellowship or observership and surgery. You might be, when you join that department, you not only are exposed to dermatosurgery per se, but you're also exposed to the other areas. You get a new perspective in how people are approaching managing cases, which might be slightly different from what you had been taught during residency. That gives you the broader perspective is going on in your specialty and the subject as a whole. That, if you can be done a couple of years post your residency, will definitely holistic sort of will upskill you holistically into practice, or even if you join an institute. It's probably, yes, senior residency. Combine a senior residency with a fellowship, you could possibly do. And then, of course, the decision has to be made whether you want to opt for a private practice or whether you join it. It will be based on various factors. Of course, in an institute, you need to have a passion for teaching. If you feel that stands you in good stead, you should go for it. And in fact, I wish more of our residents join the institutes, because I see that probably a lot of residents do pass out from our institutes, but it's only a few of them that actually are passionate enough for teaching to join our institutes. So I think more of us need to be open to joining our institutes, so that we can actually, they can actually build up the next line of dermatologists.
That's perfectly said, sir.
The teaching is a wonderful profession. I completely agree with you. And the more you teach, the more you tend to learn yourself. I believe that.
And if you can combine, I mean, in the teaching institute, you have to it's always a part of the whole environment. So it's not only teaching, you also patient sanity. If you do have a separate clinic, allow that. So then you can combine both of you can be a teacher and institute, plus also probably time to patient care.
Many residents are interested in cosmetic dermatology, but it's something that is very little stressed upon. In fact, it's viewed as a taboo in some places during residency. So, like, how does one get enough exposure or training in cosmetic dermatology? Is it something that has to be done only after residency, or is there something that can be done during residency for those who are passionate about it? Are there any workshops or conferences, or how to learn cosmetic dermatology as a resident?
There are certain seniors amongst us who are probably dead against cosmetic or aesthetic dermatology in any form. But I feel that our specialty has evolved now. It makes sense to embrace what is good in surgical and aesthetic practice, because after all, these help us in offering scope of management options to our patient. It should not be the be-all and end-all of why we have joined dermatology, because that is the scenario that we are facing. Who join just for the glamour of dermatology. So that shouldn't be the case, because a sound clinic, a grounding in clinical dermatology is mandatory going into surgical or aesthetic dermatology later on. Residency period, you should have a sound grounding, and then, of course, as you go into your second and third year, have exposure to years of aesthetic practice. I will not say that all the departments have everything, but at least a smattering of whatever is done in the departments will give you the fillet and probably the impetus to probably go into certain areas. And then there are the workshops, as you have mentioned. You need to keep track of the good workshops. So I mean, now there are a lot of options, but I think the IDVF and ACSI, these are the, the parent bodies have, a faculty and the procedures. So it's best to learn from these workshops. And then of course, the small sort of CNEs and hands-on training that is also offered. Probably it will be more for the just after you pass the residency.
Sir, how do you gain confidence to do the cosmetic procedures? Because that is something that I feel is a scary thing for residents per se. Because residents are not exposed to cosmetic procedures and then they're thrown outside where they have to start doing procedures. I think confidence will be a big issue. So they don't know whether they're doing it correctly.
Post-PG observership or even a clinical apprenticeship, as I had mentioned earlier. A clinical apprenticeship with someone who is regularly doing such procedures, because ultimately, it is impossible during your residency with the amount of residents nowadays in a department to have hands-on experience for each and every procedure. Of course, it depends on the department also. In our department, of course, we encourage as many residents to have a hands-on experience of procedures, but every procedure is not done in our department. So definitely there is scope for upskilling in conferences and hands-on workshops. Yes, there are certain procedures which will need sort of learning curve, which are more machine-based than skill.
Sir, on that note, I just wanted to say AXICON 2022 was wonderful. And there was this particular session where the senior dermatologists, they actually said all their worst experiences. They projected it on screen, and all, the recently passed out, all of us, we were like scared, and we were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't touch that machine, or maybe we shouldn't do that. And the best part was they showed all their worst experiences or encounters with people who have been treated outside or by quacks. And they had shown how they corrected it and how they got things under control. And that session was really very well done, and it kind of like gave us the confidence, okay, even if we do something, we should be ready to own it. So yeah, that AXICON 2022 was wonderful. Looking forward to 2023.
Big round of thanks to the organizers led by Dr. Selim for a wonderful AXICON 2022, and I'm sure you will experience that Nagpur for the next AXICON 2023.
So talking about procedures, which is your favorite dermatosurgical procedure?
Yeah, I mean, during the residency, as I said, it was mainly with the cryo normal stuff that you do, the biopsies and all that. But possibly post-training, I did an observership with and there I was exposed to the vitiligo surgery, sort of to me, immediately post-residency. That is the area that I was interested in, and I definitely, and especially the suction blister. And that is an area which I learned, then probably honed it with the various small modifications and more sort of changes that you get to know once you start doing it on a regular basis. Yes, that is one procedure that is close to my heart. Yes.
So with exams round the corner, we have 1/3 of our residents who are, in their last lap, the last semester of their residency. Do you have any tips, how to cope up with the last
That's
6
something that,
months?
I find a lot of in the last 6 months. But the thing is that if you now, this is the time when you need to probably intensify the extensive learning that you have done over the, say, first 2 years. So the first 2 years should be, for extensive learning into the, you have completed your thesis, submitted your thesis into the intensive bit. So you have to go deeper into the focus areas where you know you will be asked questions both for theory as well as for practicals. The regular reading and of course regular attendance at your case discussions, the seminars, the journal clubs will stand you in good stead. Possibly, you will always have the examination sort of the fear that you stuff for your writtens and the viva. It happens to all of us. It has happened to all of us, and it will continue to happen. But the thing is that you need to be confident enough to deliver when.
Sir,
Go ahead.
yeah, sir. The general opinion of people who are not doing dermatology is that dermatology is a very chill department and there's no stress at all. So, but the reality is there is a lot of stress, and many residents are facing burnout in dermatology. So, how does one, cope up with the stress even in dermatology? And are there any ways to avoid a
So one
burnout
thing,
or
is
to
there any
rejuvenate oneself?
specialty which is without the stress? The people in preclinical subjects, they would also tell that they are under severe stress now with the competency-based curriculum coming in. They are straddled with more work than what was earlier. So stress will be there in every sphere. It's how you look into it. And as I said, see, if you develop a passion for something, then you will know ways and means to out of what you are doing. So you wouldn't consider it as a stress. And of course, it helps if you have a set of hobbies to release your stress. So it makes sense to develop certain hobbies and me time so that you can be recharged. It could be, it could be a book, or you could be just, doing something creative. Depends on. Never lose touch with your hobbies, even during residency. Use it as a means to release stress from all the monotony of the daily work that a resident is expected to do. It's definitely one of stress is definitely one area where we need to counsel our residents also. I feel nowadays because we have seen cases where people do not open up and then probably feel more stressed out, and that's an area that we should actually counsel our residents.
Also, I want to say that all those who have joined us, they are free to ask questions in the comment box and we'll take that up. So, sir, next question is, if you had to do your residency differently, this question has been framed by Vignesh. So how would you plan it? Like, is there anything you would like to do differently and not in the way that was done?
Do it differently in all the areas that I messed up. No? So probably yes. Probably now if I have to join a residency, the passion from the outset itself, actually do not need to have time to, because frankly speaking, dermatology for an MBBS undergraduate is sort of because even nowadays you have the mandatory 1 week internship. 1 week internship doesn't expose you to a lot of areas of dermatology, and you actually know just the tip of the iceberg. So feet, Spoke and Fitzpatrick itself takes about 6 months to 1 year. So that of course will be approached differently now. And what else? Yes, probably aesthetics and surgical dermatology would be more now. So that is an area probably that would be different from how we approached our residency. Having said that, I feel clinical dermatology will never lose its relevance. It will always be there, especially think of it, if you do not have clinical dermatology, you wouldn't have dermatologists coming out of the institutes. So therefore, clinical grounding in clinical dermatology relevant in our times, and of course, then you can, if it's done, you can put the icing in the form of dermatosurgery, or even say
So what advice would you like to give? I'm a freshly passed out resident. I just passed out this year. Vignesh is also right there. So what advice would you like to give to freshly passed out graduates like us?
knowing the two of you, and you are brilliant postgraduates, so having you two, I mean, freshly passed out residents would be to specialty teaching. So I would probably like the all of you to join our institutes across the country, and then take the onus of mentoring the next generation of dermatologists who will be as bright and as brilliant as you.
That's wonderfully put, sir. That's wonderful.
Sir, I had a question. Life within residency is completely different. Here we are within these four protected walls. We see a particular set of cases. We don't have to worry about other things. We don't have to worry about finances or like the patient legal lawsuits or stuff like that. How is life different within residency and outside residency? And is there some way that we can train so that we are
That's
prepared for life
a very relevant
outside
question
residency?
and thank you for asking me this, because I feel, yes, the life in the residency is a sheltered environment where we are exposed, attending our OPDs, not have a liability. The rest with our professors and other teachers and mentors. Sheltered, even if you do something wrong, you do not need to address to redress it at a personal level. Then, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is probably how you interact with your patients. That interview, that clinical interview, it always stands you in good stead to actually observe how your seniors, even your senior PGP or your resident, so that gives you an exposure of the various different ways that you can approach the same set of problems. A good step. Then, of course, you will need to have a grounding in the litigation field nowadays, especially if you are doing procedural dermatology. So there, of course, you will need to keep a tab on what you should do in such litigations. So in that sense, having the papers, the documentation, and how to maintain those will be of help. Of course, you have such as webinars also in such areas, and even our conferences nowadays have sessions, litigation and other aspects, so that those attending those sessions definitely help. Of course, I think observing the seniors, how they interact with patients, and then, of course, post-residency, probably a clinical apprenticeship. That helps, in making you more confident in dealing with your patients when you, go for your practice. practice or when you go for your patient care at a level where you are liable for or to.
So, how do you balance between work, clinics, research, academics, family? Like how to
I wish
balance between everything?
I could, the thing is that it's always progress. But the only thing is that you have to strike the right balance. Impossible to balance. Instead of that, the onus is on you to create the right balance. That depends on your own set of circumstances. But then, yes, you have to prioritize your areas. If you consider academics with your practice, with your family, expect all of these three spheres to do the same all times in your life. So there will be certain times when will take precedence. So you have to, then go slow in the other sphere. Maybe, the family at certain phase of your life, and then of course, a certain phase of life where you can go to your professional life, or to research assignments. So it's basically an interplay of time, setting certain priorities, setting certain sort of boundaries between years. So even if you are doing it concurrently, they do not impinge on particular as much as feasible. Of course, yes, sometimes it will be impossible to, but as I said, you create your own balance.
That's wonderfully put, sir. You're a wonderful orator,
I hope
sir.
it makes sense to most of the people who are out there.
No, of course, yes. I agree completely with everything you've said, sir.
So do you have like a go-to dermatology textbook currently? Or has it changed or has it been the same since your
So since I'm
residency?
in a teaching institute and you can never leave Brooks and Fitzpatrick, can you? Our IDVL has helped in making things a bit concise. We have the IDVL textbook now, of course, and now a lot of other textbooks have come up to actually say better over the rest. But yes, every textbook will have something which will which you will feel more comfortable with. Chapters probably you'll be with Fitzpatrick, then with Brooks. Also, what you read during your residency. So for me, we were basically brought up on Brooks and Fitzpatrick. So possibly those are our go-to textbooks even now. Other smaller textbooks that are coming in, possibly STI we have available now, and even for leprosy nowadays we have the smaller textbooks coming in, which fairly good justice of giving a composite idea of the topics. For dermatosurgery,
Sir,
something that I can recommend, surgery for ACSI, it is the most comprehensive one. Thanks on Dr. Sawant's, Dr. Sati Sawant's textbook of dermatosurgery, which still is one of the best books in dermatosurgery. SI one is, I feel, more comprehensive.
Sir, and during residency, the thing is we are constantly updated by all these journal clubs and seminars and webinars. But once we are outside residency, we are no longer exposed to all of this. So there's always that fear that we will get outdated and we're not being updated. So, like, how do we tackle that once we are out of residency? Like, should we schedule some time to like stay updated, or how to find time for updating ourselves outside
Between
the
FOMO,
residency?
right? Fear of missing out. No, I get it.
Yes, sir.
As long as you are in, so that is one area. If you are, interested in, keeping yourself updated, then probably joining an institute immediately after post graduation for senior residency will serve that purpose. But that yes, after your senior residency, once you are into solo practice, if you are, then yes, this area of upskilling on a regular basis becomes slightly difficult with the time constraints. We, one thing that I mean, gather from my residence is that once you start your practice, there is always a gestation time. So, the first few months you wouldn't be so busy as you would be, say, on a later date. So those particular months probably you can make use of your time in the clinic, be waiting for your next patient to walk in by just having a look at the journals or scanning the nowadays with the internet, so the journals in your mobile, so you can go through whatever. And in our times we used to have this what's new. I don't know whether you all were exposed to that. What's new was one of the publications that was edited by Dr. Amit Valia, and that had the lovely of all the recent stuff that used to come in. What's new in dermatology? That was a series. I think as it's no longer in circulation. Probably it's talked about a couple of years back. But you have a lot of updates coming nowadays. I see a lot of updates in. So those are the things that probably help you update yourself, even if you are in a private practice. You can actually, of your sort of the gestation time with your practice.
Sir, and another personal note, on a personal note, I think following the National Resident Connect Committee can also give a lot of updates, because we post, bite-sized pieces of new updates
And
that
the
are very
newsletters that
easy
you
and
all guys,
convenient.
people have come up with, I mean, whether it be the national level and even the state level, most of the states have a, sort of a Yuva Dharma sort of a program going on. So there's a lot of brilliant articles and research snippets which can be used for, touch with what's going on in the specialty.
So there's a question. Dr. Saloni Katoch, ma'am, has asked that do you have any memorable experience from your residency?
I expect Dr. Saloni to be, to bring this up. Okay, so yeah, a lot of memorable things. The residency period for us was, probably we were in the possible at our department there, because that was the time where we had this sort of department case now. So that time we had with us and the senior mentors with us. And we had a lot of fun, even within the residency. Yeah, one thing probably if I do have to highlight probably was the distances that we used to travel for our conferences, because I did my Guwahati, and I particularly remember the journey that as PGs on a train, Trivandrum, for the Kochi conference, and that took us just more than 74 hours. 74 hours. So, but that journey was so wonderful. We had not only our co-PGs, we had our seniors who were not in the institute. They were the dermatologists of the region, said, we had a big party traveling together. So yes, one of these views, and of course, the areas that the CMEs, the conferences that you organize or that you attend, those were always memorable events. For me, yeah.
Sir, I had a question. What is the importance of social media in today's dermatological practice? And as a resident, how much of social media should be there? And how much time should we
I won't
spend
be
on
able to
social
answer
media?
that because we had no social media while we were doing residency. Social media for us was probably Orkut. You guys even familiar with that? Okay. Okay, so
I
Orkut
had created
probably
an
came
account, but I never used it.
2006-7, and it was way past our residency.
Then I was in school that time. We had Orkut. We used to do that. Was the first social media website. The first
Again,
thing that came.
it's relevant to the times that we are. So definitely, social media has. In fact, we are doing a session on social media itself. So social media does have a role to play. Probably even during residency. So if you want to connect to resident forums like this, so where you get to be in touch with your co-residents across the country. So WhatsApp has brought us all so much closer. To meet, say, I from Guwahati needing to be in touch with someone from the south or the north, the only opportunity for us to meet was in a national conference, which was once in a year, unless we, of course, connect over phone or over mails, which wasn't. So now that we have WhatsApp and you have WhatsApp forums of like-minded individuals, so that does, of course, give you of sharing ideas, of sharing cases, and process. So definitely, social media has a role in that. But then again, on an individual level, distraction during a residency. So you need to be, you need to have the sort of the what do you call? You have to find a balance there.
Balance.
You will need to pick and choose what social media to follow, and you can't spend time, scrolling through all the stuff that comes up on social media. So you have to find the correct balance because otherwise, there is the danger of getting carried away or spending more time than is necessary. That media post residency nowadays, you see a lot of people, of course, doing good work and probably connecting. We have WhatsApp groups also for that, where we share cases, difficult cases, where we share our opinions on different cases, and possibly then that helps us in finding the most optimal treatment for that particular set of the clinical. Just to learn and grow in the process. Yes. So in that regard, definitely I'll say social media is here to stay. The responsibility of using it, which rests with us.
I think COVID-19 has established the need of social media.
Yes. As you also see, very recently, I even had a dance session done over internet itself. So that wouldn't have been there pre-COVID.
The ideal virtual.
Yes, Dermatalent, right?
Dermatalent.
Yeah, it's because it wouldn't have been possible in the physical world, isn't it? You couldn't have had, screen through that many performances physically. So it's only this post-COVID world that probably have given us such platforms, and people can share their views and their passions other than dermatology.
So you were bestowed with the Sinha Memorial Award at the Dermacon 2015. So for those who do not know, the Ellen Sinha Memorial Award is awarded to young dermatologists less than 45 years of age, and it is to acknowledge their overall contribution to the field of dermatology. So how was your experience receiving such
You
an honorable award?
and for any particular awards, right? So basically, it's just a process that you follow. You follow the process of being passionate about the subject, interested in doing research work. Here, I was also taking up responsibilities and assignments for associations like IDPL and ACSI. I strongly believe that should not shy away from such responsibilities because foster your self-confidence, but also helps in promoting your leadership skills in your interpersonal communications. So those can be in good stead wherever you are in life. So probably those areas, the academics and the associational responsibilities that I had undertaken probably stood me in good stead for that award.
Sir, clinical photography is very important for dermatology and for dermatosurgical procedures, clinical dermatology. So are there any particular tips that you would like to tell us about how best to take clinical photographs of our patients?
I may not be the best person to tell you this, but yes, I do dabble in some photography of sorts. But the thing that I would, yes, it is always advantageous to have a standalone camera for that, which has a resolution, because a lot of the times we use our mobile phones, and even I do that. I mean, with mobile phones is with that is the resolution part, because what comes on the screen is good enough on the phone, but if you want to present that, it loses this sort of do a substantial presentation. So of course the raw images for a standalone DSLR would be the best, I believe. And more important, what the camera you're using is how you're doing it. So basically having a set area for the Native Institute for doing the photography will serve you. Of course, taking pictures at the same angles, with the same focus of the photographs. So nowadays, I think most of the conferences have good sessions on clinical photography. With every conference, I'm sure even the international would have a session of photography. So I think attending those will also give you the more sort of basis to what good photography or good clinical photography means.
Yes, sir.
I had another thing. Actually, initially during the COVID, all of the conferences were virtual, and we could attend many conferences without having to worry about leaves or travel or stay. But now that conferences are starting to become physical. So how do you choose which conferences to attend, and how to use your leaves wisely now that we are coming out of the COVID pandemic?
It was wonderful to have those webinars, but Dr. Vignesh, I mean, how was the experience sitting at one place from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.? You were to attend the session.
It was difficult.
That I agree. You had access to more events virtually, but now that has opened up the phase of hybrid conferences. Even AXICON, the last AXICON before 22, that Guwahati, in fact, was a hybrid one. So I think that will probably stay for some conferences, but now that we're opening up totally, it will be mostly all physical. So there you need to identify the which will give you that holistic upscale. So in that sense, I think the Dermacons, something that you look forward to, because whatever area you have a passion for, it will be covered. The workshops, a piece of lectures, a bit of panel discussions on those topics during the conference. If you are into surgical anesthetic dermatology, and the focus conferences, the single hall focus conferences, be it on clinical dermatology, be it on pediatric dermatology. I always felt, even now I feel it, those single hall small CMEs and this thing, you tend to get and learn more than specialty parallel hall conferences. To make that choice depending on surgical interests. If your areas of interest are into several spheres, then you need to pick and choose. Probably, the yardstick is probably every 2 years, probably something major comes up in each of the subspecialties. So if one year you're attending pediatric dermatology, probably next year you can go for surgical dermatology. That will be probably if you are a bit short of leaves as such.
Sir, and how to continue writing and publishing post residency, if at all we are going into private practice or something like that. So how do you
Especially
stay?
because when you, I also want to add into this, like when you are in a government hospital or an institute, you are exposed to a lot of patients. Like you have patients to follow up and conduct research, whether prospective, retrospective. But when you are out of that and into a private sort of practice, then you, of course, lesser number of patients are coming. So it's difficult to do research then. So, and how to be, how to still keep active in research.
Yes, the patient load might not be as great, but then probably sometimes we miss out on those case series and documenting the presentations of common diseases, even in a private practice setup. But it's probably the inertia of publishing sometimes. But I have seen several people, several seniors, private practice who have voluminous publications shared. Say probably Dr. Shymanta Barua would be topping the list. He's never been in an institute, but if you could just see his publications. So if you have the knack of doing that, you will have developed the knack of probably documenting the presentations that you come across, and then of course good networking with people where you develop a sort of a collaborating research group, because there are certain areas where multicentric studies are warranted and you can contribute that area. It depends on the knack, and even in the private practice, it doesn't matter. Even for that matter, our president-elect now, Dr. Residency, he's also majorly into private practice, plus affiliated to an institute. He also has a lot of publications, so he can be inspired with them.
Sir, and when it comes to procedural dermatology, just prior to doing any procedure, is there something where you can brush up the procedure in a short span of time? Because sometimes it can get confusing, the amount of ml or the concentrations. And is there some
getting this question up? As the president of ACSI is actually thinking of these lines. We have that comprehensive textbook of dermal surgery by ACSI. So we are mulling handbook. Will fit the bill, so you can actually have the must-dos of every procedure listed. Be a reference at your clinic or at your institute. So this is an area probably you youngsters can contribute to, and we hope to have this up and coming in the next year.
Thank you, sir.
So I think We are 1 hour through, and it's been wonderful, sir, talking to you. It seems like we've been talking.
Okay.
Yes. And we never realized, it seems like it's just been 10-20 minutes, because it was so much fun to listen to you and so informative.
Thanks.
You're a wonderful
doing this,
orator,
and
sir.
it was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. So,
All of you, especially the three of you. And I hope we can do this. You were going on the series, so best of luck for the future programs as well. I'm sure NRCC would be a platform that all our residents would look forward to for talks and for other insights. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.
And yes, wish
Happy New Year in advance.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy holidays and Happy New Year. And thank you to everybody who joined us today, despite the holiday season and New Year coming up. Thank you all for joining us. And we'll be sharing this video for all those who joined us briefly or, couldn't join us. So we'll be sharing this on the platform, NRCC platform, on the Instagram page.
you.
Thank you, sir.